Hey there, word wizards! Welcome back to another episode of Am I Right? And I have an exceptional and lovely guest for you today, Jennifer Nielsen, who is a multi-published author. Jennifer, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am thrilled that you came on. We actually have a little bit of a personal connection through a little girl who has read her books and absolutely loves her, but that's a story for another time. So I'm going to read her bio here while she has to sit awkwardly and listen. Jennifer Nielsen is the New York Times bestselling author of the Ascendance Series, the Traitor's Game series, historical novels such as A Night Divided, Resistance, Words on Fire, and her latest release, Lines of Courage. She is the founder of Book Drop, which helps connect children at Title I schools with authors and books, and she has a hopeless addiction to chocolate that I can relate to, and she lives in northern Utah with her family. So that's Utah. That's Utah. That's her in just a little nutshell, which is definitely doesn't cover everything that she's done, and I'm hoping to uncover some of those things. So we're grateful to have you on. One of the first questions that we like to ask on this show is that it seems that there's a kind of secret sauce when it comes to successful authors, particularly with those who hold their cards a little closer to the chest, which is okay in some cases. But for those aspiring writers and authors that are listening in today, is there a trait or a tendency that you have seen in fellow successful writers that you think has brought them kind of a level above the rest?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that come to mind. The first one is just grit. Just,
Mm,
you know, that ability to dig in when other people kind of wander away. And it's having that second wind. It's saying, you know what, I'm not going to give up and I am dedicated to this. And it does matter. The reality is that you don't see many writers who go the distance for a full career who lack grit.
mm.
Second, I think that you see a lot for really successful authors is you don't get cocky. There is no making it. There's no point at which you can just say, well, you know what, it doesn't matter now. How will I write? Or I've just reached a level where I have nothing left to learn. Like as soon as you reach that point, you are done. And so to me, it is that keeping some humility and maintaining that grit.
Mm. That's a good answer. That's not one that we've had on the show yet, is the remaining uncocky, not cocky. I think that's a really important point though, because the more I learn with writing, the less I feel that I know about writing, right? And isn't that how that's supposed to be? Is just gives us so much room for creativity and for exploration and continual learning. So thank you for that. That's a great answer.
Well, I was
Um,
just gonna say on it, it's because writing's an art.
mm,
It's art. And so there is no right or wrong. There's just stronger or weaker ways to do things. And when you start to get cocky, you start to assume that the way you've done things is automatically the best. And
right.
because art, it won't always be that way. So you've got to be humble enough that you're teachable so that somebody else can say, hey, look, this sucks. And you've got to be like, yeah, you're right, it does, and find something stronger.
Yeah, don't go cry in your corner, which it's tough. Even the criticism that I've received thus far, and I'm clearly not have quite as big of a resume as you, perhaps, but just that feeling of, oh man, is this ever gonna make it? Is it ever gonna be good enough for that? Is there any ways that you combat that? Are there rituals, daily habits that you have that help you to remember to stay humble and also to find worth in your writing and what you do for a craft?
Um, I Staying humble is easy. I've got teenagers, so that's easy. Um,
Good
no,
enough.
I I'm always really focused on why I'm here. Why I'm able to write books, and I realize that ultimately it's about my readers, that that I care about them, and that I'm a bigger fan of theirs than they'll ever be of mine. And because I care about them, everything I write is for them. And that keeps me focused on what matters, that it's about what I give out, not what comes back to me.
Mm. That's I love that. It's perfect, and it's a selfless approach. And if you're not writing because you're passionate about something with the writing and your goal is the publication, I can think of about 600 other jobs that will get you to a monetary gain, I think, a lot faster and more efficiently. So that's very true. And going along with that, I know you've mentioned this in talks and things before, but you have a very beautiful conviction about your purpose in helping the people that read your books. Would you talk about that a little bit about why writing is more about helping other people than it is for writing?
Yeah, I mean, it gets just a tad bit religious, but not denominational.
Mm,
Um, Before I go into a school or really into any public event, I'm always just kind of the mindset that I'm there for somebody. And I don't know who it is and I don't know why it is. I just kind of walk in with the idea of I'm here for somebody. And inevitably, that person, I'll figure it out nearly every time. And I know I've got to talk to them. I don't always know what I have to say, but and so I've kind of come to the place where I believe that it is that God doesn't care about my books.
mm,
He cares a great deal about how my books give me access to helping people in any environment. And so as long as I kind of stay with that mindset, it keeps me in the direction I want to be. And through that, doors have opened that I don't think ever would have opened. Um, in terms of conversations I've been able to have with young people, and that makes all of it worth it.
mm. And that's why I wanted to add this on. I know it kind of already goes with our last question, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful the way that she views writing and that you do that to keep yourself humble. And I do think it's sort of a calling. It feels like for a lot of writers, it's not something that you just do because it's easy or because you're gonna make a lot of money off of it. It's something that's more inspirational than that. So that's an excellent answer. Perfect. That's one of our plaque answers. We always get a plaque answer on this show. That's perfect.
That's the plaque answer. Well, I think we have to recognize as writers that there's power in words, that the words themselves have power, and not only the words that we speak, but especially the words we write. And so, for your listeners, these words that you're writing, and you wonder if they'll ever go anywhere, and if anybody's going to ever read them and publish them and care about them, the reality is you have to keep going because somebody at some point will read your work and they will come back to you and say, look, your words changed my life, or your words saved my life.
Mm,
And that, just knowing that's ahead of you should mean stay in the game because that's what's coming for you. That's why you are doing this.
mm. That's beautiful. Thank you. I actually have some questions from some younger aspiring writers for you,
Mhm.
and I think it would be fun to see your response. So I'm going to pull them up really quick. But while I'm doing that, what are you reading right now? What can we tune into that you love to read that you would suggest to the audience?
There is the Lost in Wonderland series by J. Scott Savage is absolutely brilliant and just fun to read, just kind of taking the story of Alice in the Wonderland and turning it on its head. That is one that's right at the top of my reading stack right now, and it's
Mm,
very well done.
mm. What a fun retelling. That's perfect for kids too. I think that would be absolutely fabulous. We'll put that in the show notes so that we can. I'm definitely going to tune in and read for sure.
Yeah, yeah, he's great.
So one of their questions is how do you get your ideas for your books? And I kind of want to add on to that a little bit because I you have historical elements in a lot of your books and historical focus, and I think it's difficult sometimes to get kids to pay attention to history, and I think you do that very well. So what have you found in that? Is there a balance there? What kind of research have you had to do to try to make it so that it fits both your audience dynamic and parameter, but also is kind of fun and educational?
So for history, like where do I get the ideas? That kind
Yeah,
of.
sure. Yeah.
Um, I I'm a history nerd. I troll everywhere for ideas. There's a great website, Atlas Obscura, which I adore. and it will say, you know, here's a place on the map, and here's an interesting story about this place that you may not know. And it's not always history related, but there's a lot of really cool things there. I collect, you know, if it's just, you know, I'm browsing, you know, Salvation Army and their book section, and I'll find a book that looks interesting. I'll get a lot of ideas there. Um, and it's just, and it's paying attention to what lights up my imagination, and then just digging deeper. And when we do that, it's amazing, you know, how the story just presents itself. You know, for Lines of Courage that I did, it started with a World War One medal that was on the battlefields of France, and there was no story attached to it. And I'm staring at this medal and I'm thinking, I don't know a thing about how World War One, what went on in World War One. And so from this medal comes all of Lines of Courage. So everything for me is inspiration. It's just what I grab onto and start to ask questions about, and that becomes the story.
And asking those questions, allowing your brain to have that time to explore, why is this here? Why is this compelling to me? What could I make out of this? I think is really important. Um,
Yeah.
Next question is, do you base your characters off of real people? And I'm just gonna leave it at that because I'm curious about that myself.
Yeah, rarely. Rarely. And it's because, for anybody who's read any number of my books, you know, I am horrible to my characters.
Uh,
Like, I am just cruel to them. And if I were thinking about somebody in my own life, somebody that I cared about, I would never be able to be as cruel to the character as I need to be.
mm,
So overwhelmingly, I keep real people in my real life and fictional people in my fictional life, and they don't often cross. Like, I'll
yep.
pull in a trait or two every so often, but I don't base a character ever on someone.
Do you get people always coming up to you saying, "You should put me in your book. You should put me in your book"?
No, not so much.
Oh,
I mean, every so often, I got one email one time. It was from this adorable, like, fourth grader, and
mm.
I'll change the name, but it was just this cute. It was like, you know, hi, this is Jane Smith. Could you make a book about a girl named Jane Smith who likes a boy named John, and he loves her back? Signed, Jane Smith. You know, and it was like, it was the cutest thing because she just clearly had a crush on somebody who wasn't feeling it back for her, and she just thought a book will solve everything. And I thought
She's, no,
that
I
was,
gotta talk to Jennifer about this. She can help
I
me.
know. I'll just whip
She'll
that
hook me
out,
up.
Jane.
That's fabulous. I love that.
It's
Uh,
awesome.
that's interesting to me because I've been told many times with, both in my degree and outside of my degree that um, you have to base your characters off of what you know. And because clearly you can't write a believable human being if you don't really understand how a believable human being like that would work. So do you find struggles with that, creating characters that are not based off of people, or do you just pull enough traits from just what you see in humanity that it's not really a problem for you?
Yeah, I don't actually agree with that advice, to be honest. I
Mm,
don't come at writing from an English or a language arts background. I come at it from a theater background. And so in my background, there's a lot of times I have played characters that are not like me.
mm,
And yet, what I've learned, from a theater background, is we have different experiences as humans, but emotion is a common human experience. And so you may not understand, you know, like that murderer, but you understand when you've been really angry. And so all you have to do is learn to understand your own emotional processes, and then you pull from that and you assign them to people with different backgrounds and experiences. But we all share emotions. And that's what we write, is the shared emotional experience. So no, I don't think you can limit yourself to only writing what you know. That's why we
mm,
have this amazing imagination. Write what you dream, write what lights up your imagination, what keeps you awake at night. That is what will be your best writing.
mm. That's great. And it shouldn't be surprising how often those creative lines cross between theater, between art. visual art, sound, music, and also writing. I think it's all that craft. It's all that comes from inside of you. It comes from your passion, and it's easily connectable across platforms. Coming from somebody who has a background in art as well.
Yeah, well, it's all
Yeah,
story, right?
yeah,
A
yeah.
great photograph, a great visual art tells story. Music is a story, the rise and the fall of the music, where it goes faster, louder, slower. There's a story there. Theater is story, movies are stories, dance is a story. And so once you learn to tell the story, there's a reason that people in one art are usually in a second art, like you are yourself, because all art is story.
Because we can't take it. We gotta look into everything else. We gotta try, dabble. That's what we do.
We
And I
create.
think also a writer has lived a lot of lives. I think I would agree with you in the case that you can't just write about the people around you. Although I have been told that, but just the ability to be creative in other areas, I think also brings inspiration for me in my writing, and I'm sure it has for you in theater. It sounds like it has already, so
Yeah,
um, definitely something to consider.
yeah.
Absolutely. Um, the last question that we'll bring up just for the sake of time today, her question is, what is the next book you are working on called and what is it about? Do you have anything that you're working on right now that you can talk about? I mean, don't want to give away spoilers.
No, no, it's cool. I am sorry, just had a little
No worries.
ding on my thing. All right, on my messages. Uh, what am I working on right now? The next release will be Iceberg. That is a Titanic story. Absolutely fascinating to research,
Nice.
kind of delves into this wonderful like little tidbit I discovered that we probably could have saved nearly every life on that boat if we had
Mm,
done one simple thing to
wow.
turn off the lights.
Wow.
And so, yeah, Iceberg is coming out in March. And then the thing I am writing right now is called Black Ink. It is the story of a boy who is in hiding. He has no memory, but that's okay. He has a Sharpie and he can write on his forearm. What if he writes something true about himself? The ink stays on the surface of the skin. If it's not true, the ink soaks in. Every day he writes down a different name. Every day it soaks in. So he's still trying to figure that out. He also has with him a dice set like Boggle, where there's alphabet, like it's alphabet dice. Anyway, one day he rolls that dice and they land in an order to read, "They know you are here, go." So
Wow.
doing a story about a kid with no memory, but he's got a magic Sharpie and a Boggle set that sometimes communicates to him. That's what's
That's
on my
absolutely exciting. I'd pick that up right now. You sold it very well. I'm
it's
sure they'll be
weird.
excited to hear about that. Yeah, I'll look forward to it. And in that vein, as we're wrapping up here, is there any, before we get to our resources, is there any last advice, parting advice that you would leave with viewers, listeners, aspiring writers, and authors?
Yeah, for anybody who's writing and wonders if there's a future in here for them, I think it's really important to understand that not everybody has a writer's brain. And in
Hmm.
fact, that's a relatively unique sort of a thing. And so this idea that you have, this idea in your head of everyone in the universe, it came to you, which means there's literally nobody else in the universe who can write your story the way you are meant to. It is yours, and don't give up on it, and don't give up on yourself. Just keep going, and there is room for you here as a published author. So just keep going, and you'll get here.
Wow. There's nothing I could add to that. That's perfect.
Thank you.
For everyone who is listening, which I suspect is a lot, how can they become more connected with you if they want to? What can we do to be a part of your community?
If you want to find me on Instagram or Twitter, either way, it's at Nielsen Writer. So NIELSENWRITER. And I'd love to see you there.
Perfect. And also, we'll have this in the notes, but for those listening, that is it the Atlas Obscura that you brought up
Atlas
already?
Obscura.
Atlas
Yeah.
Obscura. Okay. I
Yep.
definitely need to check that out. I'm excited to hear
Yeah.
some.
Like that.
Oh, that looks so fun.
It's so
Might
cool.
have to add that to my Goodreads pretty soon
Yeah.
here.
No, it's fabulous.
Awesome.
for anybody who's just curious about the world.
Yeah, and I think curiosity is what spurs good ideas, so why not learn as much as you can?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Jennifer, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on here, and I'm so grateful that you were able to connect. And I just want to thank you in behalf of our audience for coming on. And I'll have you stick around here for a minute before everybody else that's listening. Right on.
Thank you.